Imagine this: a small, quaint village, a bench, and two friends sinking into the bench's worn-out comfort. One of them, we'll call him He, is a man of few words, but many emotions. He begins to share his day with his friend, Who. Now, Who is a character always ready for a laugh, even where there isn't one. But let's get back to He and his story. He had an employee named Bhagwan. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In Hindi, Bhagwan means God. Keep that in mind, it's important. So, he was upset with Bhagwan, not the divine entity, but his worker. Bhagwan had failed to complete a task, and he had understandably lost his cool. So, he is recounting this incident to Who, saying, "I met Bhagwan today and I shouted at him." Now, Who starts laughing uncontrollably. He is confused. Why is his friend laughing at his frustration? He shouted at an employee named Bhagwan, not at God. But he had forgotten to clarify this crucial detail. Who, still laughing, can't believe what he's hearing. He thinks his friend He has yelled at God. And in his amusement, Who decides this is too good a story not to share. So he shares it with everyone he meets that day, painting a picture of He shouting at God. The next day, He finds people grinning at him, waving, chuckling under their breath. He's perplexed, unaware that his story, distorted by miscommunication and a language barrier, has become a source of amusement to the whole village. And just like that, a simple story about a boss and his employee turned into a religious comedy. But hold on to your seats, folks, because this misunderstanding is just the beginning. The real fun starts when He realizes what's happened, but that's a story for another scene. Now, Who found this misunderstanding so funny he just couldn't keep it to himself? Picture this: a small village where everyone knows everyone, and a story so funny it could make the sternest of faces crack a smile. That's exactly what Who had in his hands, a comedy gold that was too good to keep to himself. Like a mischievous child with a box of paints, Who started splashing this colourful tale across the canvas of the village. He narrated it to the milkman, the postman, the baker, the grocer, the barber, and anyone who would lend an ear. The story of He shouting at Bhagwan, or as they understood it, at God, spread like wildfire. Imagine the hilarity that ensued. The villagers, in their everyday humdrum, found a delightful distraction in this amusing tale. The idea of someone having the audacity to shout at a deity was so ludicrous, it was laugh-out-loud funny. And every time they saw He, the man of the hour, they couldn't help but smile and wave, suppressing their chuckles. He, oblivious to the comedic storm he had unwittingly brewed, was puzzled. Why was everyone smiling at him? Why were they waving as if he was some kind of a celebrity? He felt like a stand-up comedian who didn't know his own punchline. Little did he know he had become the star of the village, the protagonist of the most entertaining story of the year. Meanwhile, Who, the master storyteller, was having the time of his life. He revelled in the mirth that his tale had spread, the smiles it had brought to people's faces. The village, usually so quiet, was alive with laughter and whispers, all thanks to him. In the grand theatre of life, Who had set the stage. He had unwittingly played his part, and the villagers were an eager audience waiting for the next act. The tale of the man who shouted at God had taken on a life of its own. And so the rumour spread, turning our friend He into a local celebrity. It's a new day, and He is baffled by the sudden change in people's behaviour towards him. As he navigates through the village, the usual stoic faces are replaced by grins and giggles. A wave of confusion washes over him, his forehead creases, his eyes squint in bewilderment. As he reaches his office, he spots his friend Him. Trusting in their friendship, He decides to share his strange morning experience. He recounts the unusual smiles and the odd waves, the laughter echoing behind his back. The more he shares, the more Him's smile widens until it breaks into laughter. He is taken aback. The mystery of the day seems to deepen. Then Him, between bouts of laughter, finally reveals the secret. Him tells He about the hilarious misunderstanding that's been the talk of the town. "You shouted at Bhagwan, mate," Him manages to say between fits of laughter. He looks at Him, his confusion deepening. Him continues, "Not the Bhagwan who works for you, but Bhagwan as in God. In Hindi, Bhagwan means God." He blinks The information's slowly sinking in. The smiles, the waves, the laughter, they all start making sense. He had inadvertently become the comic relief of the village, all thanks to a cultural mix-up and linguistic misunderstanding. He had shouted at God, or at least that's what everyone in the village thought. The revelation is both shocking and amusing. He chuckles, then bursts into laughter. The absurdity of the situation is too much to handle. He had been angry, yes, but to be angry with God? That was something else entirely. In the midst of their shared laughter, he realizes the humor in his miscommunication. The whole village was laughing not at him, but at the situation. The thought of someone shouting at God was just too funny to ignore. And just like that, the penny dropped and he finally understood the humor in his miscommunication. Now, what's a story without a moral, right? So let's rewind a bit and take a closer look at the events that unfolded in our quaint little village. It all started when our friend He had a bit of a mix-up with his employee, Bhagwan. Now, when you're in a hurry and a little bit miffed, it's easy to forget that words can have different meanings in different contexts. This is precisely what led to our friend's hilarious predicament. You see, in Hindi, Bhagwan means God. So when our friend Hu decided to share the story of He shouting at Bhagwan, well, you can imagine how the story might have been interpreted. A man shouting at God? Now that's bound to get a few chuckles, but the story doesn't end there. Oh no. As the tale spread throughout the village, He found himself the center of some rather bemused smiles and friendly waves. It wasn't until his friend Him clued him in on the misunderstanding that he finally understood why he was suddenly the village's favorite comedian. So what can we take away from this amusing tale of language mix-ups and misinterpreted stories? First and foremost, think before you speak. It can save you from a whole lot of confusion and possibly becoming the village jester. Secondly, be kind. Even when we're frustrated or in a hurry, a little kindness can go a long way. And finally, don't worry about what others think of you. After all, we all make mistakes, and sometimes they can lead to some pretty good laughs. In the end, our friend He learned a valuable lesson, and we got a good chuckle out of it. And isn't that what stories are all about? Learning, growing, and finding humor in the everyday. And there you have it, folks, a small village, two friends, and a hilarious misunderstanding that taught us all a few life lessons. So, let's wrap this up, shall we? We've journeyed through a tale of epic misunderstandings, miscommunication, and the hilarity that ensued. Our story unfolded in a quaint little village where two friends found themselves in the center of a comedic whirlwind, all thanks to a simple name, Bhagwan. Now remember our hero, He, and his interaction with Bhagwan, his employee? The task that wasn't done, the frustration that followed, and the subsequent wrath unleashed on poor Bhagwan. A typical day in the office, right? Well, not quite. This is where things went hilariously awry. Our hero, He, in his vexation, forgets to mention the crucial detail to his friend, Hu, that the Bhagwan he was referring to was an employee, not the divine entity. And as they say, the rest is history, or in this case, a story that spread like wildfire, causing much hilarity and a few red faces along the way. He found himself the talk of the town, with people, friends and strangers alike, grinning at him, waving and whispering about his divine encounter. And all this while our poor hero is left wondering why his outburst at an employee has become a source of amusement. The cherry on top of this comedic sundae was the revelation by him, another friend, about the hilarious mix-up. He had in fact shouted at God, or so the story went. This comedic tale, my friends, is a testament to the fact that language and context are everything. It's a reminder to think before you speak, to consider the potential interpretations of your words, and to always clarify when in doubt. But most importantly, it's a reminder to take life with a pinch of salt and a good dose of humor. So, have you had any such amusing misunderstandings? If so, we'd love to hear about them. After all, laughter is the best medicine, and we could all use a good chuckle now and then. Remember, sometimes a small misunderstanding can lead to a big laugh. Until next time, folks.